Okay, let's go ahead
There's
and
no
call to
action
order.
anyways. Well,
Nancy Kupka,
Here.
Julia Beckman,
Here.
Keith Mattoon,
here.
Terry Pavicic,
Here.
Rick Pavanato.
Here.
Let's please stand and say pledge of allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I believe we're going to start with the student presentation.
Good evening. It's my pleasure to introduce three students from North who are going to talk to you about one of our newer clubs at school, our psychology club. I also want to recognize Carrie Roberts, our faculty sponsor. At both schools, we really do strive to provide co-curricular opportunities for all students, taking into account the variety of interests that our students have. And the psychology club is doing some really interesting things that we thought you'd like to hear about. And so at this point, I'm going to turn it over to the psychology club president.
Hi, I'm Laura. I'm a senior, and I first found out about psychology through taking the regular course of like general psych, and our Miss Roberts had announced that she was there was going to be a meeting, and I think it was subliminal advertising, and there was going to be a presentation about it, and I was intrigued by it, so I wanted to go see it. So that's how I found out about it.
Good evening. My name is Hisha, and I'm a senior at North too. I also took psych with Miss Roberts, and she's such a wonderful teacher, and she kept mentioning about how she's starting a new club, and I went to one of their events, and at the beginning I think it was just like 4 of us at the events last year, and then now we have about 100 of us together, so it's really increased. And it's been a lot of fun. I love working with Miss Roberts, and I think a lot of the kids at North really enjoy learning more about psych in a more informal way, even outside of class, getting to come in and talk more, so it's a lot of fun.
Hi, my name's Tina. I first heard about psychology as a freshman because I had some upperclassmen friends who had been taking the class, and it sounded really interesting. And so I took psychology last semester, and this semester I'm taking AP Psych. And Miss Roberts has been my teacher all year, so she's been really pushing for the club. And when she first announced it at the beginning of the year, I thought it was really interesting. So now I'm a part of it, and it's been really incredible all year. We have lots of really fun events, and I don't know. Did I say that I'm a junior? There we go. That's what I missed.
So, Psychology Club is a student organization composed of juniors and seniors who express an interest in psychology, and it's really more of an informal way to talk about all of psychology, the things that we can't really talk about in class because it's such a big subject that you can't really reach everything, and it's also really applicable to your life. So there are so many different subjects that you could talk about that you could go on and on and on and on and on for hours about. That's kind of why we have the club, is so we can talk about it. And then it consists of guest speakers, presentations, after-school movie events, demonstrations, hands-on activities, and special awareness days and weeks, like Brain Awareness Week, where we sell pops and we have trivia questions, and that's really so much fun, and it's really yummy. And the hands-on activities, we have hypnotists, or we have speakers. We had a school, it was a counselor, I think, and we had she had us try different tests to diagnose ADHD or different kinds of things like that. It was really interesting. So as you can see, there's quite a few of us in this picture. Our club has really grown a lot, because there was originally, I think it was me, Hisha, the president and who was last year, and then Miss Roberts in the classroom. Like, it was really small. And then here's the president and vice president. So, and then we had a student activity fair where we had like a small booth with a poster that talked about kind of what we do. It showed like the T-shirt, which I'm modeling, and as well as like some of the things that we talk about, and it was really fun. A lot of the lower classmen were really interested, and you could really tell that some of them were just a little disappointed that they have to wait, a couple years before they can do it. But hopefully, they'll, wait. So, like I said before, a lot of people have signed up, which is really great. So here are some of our first quarter events. The first presentation we had, which was dreaming and dream analysis, and we talked about different theories of why we dream, as well as like interpreting your own dreams, and really like the best person who can interpret your dreams is you. So dream dictionaries don't really work. So it was just a really interesting presentation, and like we had papers that you could actually like read and think about different dreams that I've had, or we've also talked about the peers, like people had questions to say about it as well. The second topic that we did, we had a registered addictions nurse come in, and she talked about chemical dependency and as well as different addictions, and how it had affected her life, and like how it was I don't know, that like there was just different things. And then the other one that we did was the memory, where the autobiographical memory, which was like someone who remembers everything that has ever happened to them in their whole entire lives. So you give them a date and they remember what they had for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. If they saw a football game, if like they were dating this person, if there was a fight that was going on, they remember everything. It was really awesome. And then
our second quarter events. One of the first ones that we had second quarter was we had a few like counselors, social workers, school psychologists that came in and gave a presentation just about how they use psychology in their like real world lives, like in their career, and how it just kind of fits into what they do for other people, which is kind of really interesting because in class we learn about the different kinds of psychologists and like applied psychology and stuff like that. So this was actual real people giving you information about what they do with their lives. Later in November, Mr. John North is kind of a hypnotist. He came in and gave a demonstration to us, and we had a huge turnout for that event. And as you'll see, I think on the next slide, we have a picture of everybody who like came to the demonstration. Like he was like,
big turnout.
Yeah, it was a huge turnout. I don't know, he sort of hypnotized you, but he also explained how it wasn't
We
really...
went through the stages of relaxation first, so you kind of like got prepared for it.
Yeah. And he's also coming back actually fourth quarter, so those of us who like hadn't had psychology like first semester, who are just joining Psych Club second semester, they'll also be able to experience his wonderful demonstration. In early December, Ms. Roberts gave a presentation on subliminal messaging in advertising in Disney movies. And especially I remember there was a Skittles one, and there's like just a bunch of Disney princess stuff. And it's just really interesting stuff that you don't notice in everything that's around you. So, I don't know. Yeah. And then later in the fourth quarter, we had a video after school that just kind of talked about like prejudice and discrimination and stuff like that in like classrooms, like an experiment. This is a picture from the hypnosis presentation, and this doesn't really do justice to show how many people were actually there. There were so many people.
It was one of those rooms where there's like a fake wall in the middle, and so it was taken from the middle of the room, so it doesn't really show everybody that was there, but there was more like back.
Yeah. Okay, so for our upcoming third quarter events, we have a crisis counselor in the ER from Good Sam who's going to come and talk to us. I think, this Thursday. And she's just going to talk about how there's, what was it again? Yeah, people who have psychological problems and suicidal issues, and how she kind of deals with that in her practice. Later in February, Ms. Roberts is going to give we're going to have a roundtable discussion. So those members who come will ask questions. It's kind of, a free time to ask informal questions about really anything that has to do with psychology. And I don't know, it's a chance to get all of your questions answered. In March, there's an interactive case study and this event is actually kicking off our Brain Awareness Week, which is March 10th to the 16th. And so Dr. Paul is coming in, and she's just going to give just an interactive thing about traumatic brain injury and just stuff, and it's very hands-on. That leads right into Brain Awareness Week, which Hisha will explain in a little bit. And then later in third quarter, we're going to see a TLC video, I believe it is, and it's called The Science of Beauty, which is all about why we think this is beautiful and what is attraction and stuff like that. So that should be really interesting. And now to Brain Awareness Week.
So Brain Awareness Week is celebrated on from March 10th to March 16th, I think. And we started it last year, and we basically, Ms. Roberts, we take help from all the psychology students, including the people in the club. We make little posters with brain facts. They're not too long. We try to keep them short, and we post it all over the school, in the school walls, in the hallways. So kids during the passing period, they all can look at it and know fun little facts that none of us really realize. And we also have a trivia where if you guess in the announcement, we put out a question, and if you guess the right answer, you get a little prize. And Ms. Roberts does a great job with handling all of that. And we also sell Brain Pops, and Brain Pops is something that we all really love in school. Students also have the chance of selling it, and it's really, really yummy, and it's shaped like a brain, and it's really, really cute. And you get I think 10 different flavors, so it's really yummy. That's the Brain Pops. And it's really a lot of fun. Brain Awareness Week, I feel everyone in the school definitely knows what's going on that week, because everywhere you look, there is a little poster with a little fact and little pictures. It's a lot of fun. So that's, I think, it. Is there any questions?
I have two questions.
Mm-hmm.
Are any of you thinking you're going to go into social sciences? Psychology, sociology, anthropology?
I feel when I started out, I did think of it when I took, that's basically one of the reasons I took psychology. And we also have one of our events where the social workers in school come in and talk to us about the field in psychology, where you can go, areas, pros and cons. And it's really informational, and a lot of people come to that. But I personally do not think it's right for me. I'm kind of more into pediatrics, so I want to be a pediatrician, or even if it has to deal with psychology, maybe a pediatric nurse for psychology. But yeah. Are you?
I'm thinking about going into nutrition. So I'm thinking about working in the hospital aspect of it, or maybe in schools. But body image does play a role in what you eat. So I'd say that's kind of my motivation with going into my type of field. But I do you think psychology would kind of contribute into the kind of aspect of nutrition that I'm interested in going into?
I am not really thinking about it. I want to be an engineer, so I mean, but I really wanted to take psychology just to know why people do what they do. I thought it was really interesting from my freshman year, and I don't know, it was just a fun class to take, so yeah.
The other, just little brain fact, is that I don't know the exact span, but you are among the highest, your age group is among the highest incidence of traumatic brain injury. And so,
not to be too scary.
But maybe think about during Brain Awareness Week. I mean, I really applaud you for everything you're doing in the school. I think it's wonderful. But think about during Brain Awareness Week, is this an opportunity to reinforce things like wear a helmet, wear a seatbelt, don't go diving in shallow water, because a lot of young people have traumatic brain injuries simply because of some reckless behaviors. Maybe think about that.
Okay.
In a way, as you mentioned, like expressing all these like facts about people our age, like it's so easy for us to fall into things as such, which is why we have so many not public speakers, but like clinical psychologists and different people coming in, and they like tell us these stories, and it's like so
Personal
shocking.
stories.
Yeah, it's personal stories, and it's like, oh my God, okay, it's now that like it's all informational to us, and it's like it opens our eyes, and we're like, okay, this is what will happen if you do this. So I think a lot of people do benefit from so many different types of psychologists coming in and talking to us about it. But yeah.
I have a quick question. I noticed there were a couple of guys in your picture on the stairs. Are there a lot of guys in the
There is fairly, I mean, I think it's more girls, but there is a fair amount of guys.
Also, like, had a lot of people come after that.
Yeah.
So it wasn't everybody in the picture.
You're doing wonderful work. My goodness.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Stalin, quarterly financials?
Sure. I'd love to.
Put that one down.
I think Greg's going to pull up the fund balance report for you just to kick us off.
Thanks, Kim.
There we go. Thanks. Thank you. Not to repeat too much of what's in the written report. Obviously, we would have normally presented at the January meeting, but we truncated that meeting further well to take only action items there. The quarterly, this is really the mid-year report. We only do 3 for those that aren't aware in the audience, perhaps, that we do a mid-year and then we do third quarter and then a year-end report. And it's primarily for the purposes of just keeping an eye on our budget, making sure that things are in line. I can tell you overall they look fine right now at this stage. The fund balances are up 1.3 million compared to last year, but last year they were lower than normal. They were actually down about 1.3, so they're right about where they normally are. Last year we had a few more transfers out to the debt service fund that occurred before December 31st, and that's just timing, depending on when the holidays break and when we make some transfers ahead of time, just to move it to that fund so that it's there and available when those payments need to be made.
Can I interrupt for a second? Because I just wanted to reiterate, because we did not televise last month's meeting, but could you take a moment just to speak about debt retirement, and that you and your group have saved the taxpayer $35 to $50 per household?
Oh, the abatement that we did at the last meeting, there was an abatement of our bonds that we could issue under the alternative revenue bond ordinance that we passed, a resolution that we passed in 2011. There was, I think it was $1.3 million. I don't have the notes in front of me, but there's $1.3 million of abatement that we did so that the clerk would not levy those taxes out for the 23 13 calendar levy. And it's really just done. We intend to be able to pay this out of operations for the life of that levy, or those bonds. Actually, they're 10-year bonds, and by doing the ARBs, the alternate revenue bonds, we were able to keep the interest shorter, the interest period shorter, which also saved us just operating funds. And because it was a shorter maturity, we're also able to negotiate with a local bank, and a couple banks actually had them compete for it because they have a harder time going 20 years for the longer term that it normally might have been. So we were able to get a discounted rate or a lower rate, and had also were able to save some services that we didn't need to have Chapman and Cutler do a full-blown opinion on this because of the way we handled it. So there were some savings in there as well. But just for this, it's an annual savings about 52. Is that right? 52? I don't even remember the number myself. Actually,
Somewhere around
that's actually 52. I think was the total amount of savings by paying for this out of operations. If overall we have about $2 million worth of bonds, it's coming back to me.
I put you on the spot.
I think those brain questions had me confused. How much could the controller remember, I think, is one of the questions. And we're unfortunately finding out right now. $32 of it was attributable to the actual abatement, and the rest of it is just the other $20 is other savings from spending our operating funds as opposed to levying or issuing bonds in a different way. So.
Thank you.
Sorry.
I just wanted to bring it up because I thought it was an important thing for people to hear.
Thank you. So the next section we can go to is the revenue section. We're going to pop that up. We'll just keep it to the top section here. And that's the all funds, all operating funds combined. You can see the total at the bottom there, 91% collected as of mid-year now compared to 91% on the right-hand side last fiscal year. Very comparable. We have some fluctuations in and out of these with some of the timing of some of the receipts. Taxes, however, are 80% of our total revenue is right on target and fully collected. We'll still get some small amounts, some dribbles in on the taxes, but for the most part, we're 100% collected already. We'll get the full 69 million, I believe, by the end of the year. Replacement taxes is right in line with expectation, and it's a positive because you look at the budget column for replacement taxes, the second line item, it's up, and it had been dropping through this recession, but it's back up to going in the right direction, and we're actually still on target with that. So that's a real hard one to calculate because it is based on income tax collections by the state of Illinois, and it's hard to predict what the income is of all the corporate entities in the state, and that fluctuates a lot, particularly during the recession. It had been dropping. So it's good to see that back up, going up again, even though it's a relatively modest increase. We're happy to see that. Interest income, has been horrible for the last 4 or 5 years. It remains horrible. $147,000 is really horrible. Say it again. The apex of that line item going back, I think, into 2004 and 5 was in the $3 million range. So a healthy district with a healthy economy and interest rates that would be more normal, even though those rates were a bit up, but we would normally expect $2 to $2.5 million in that historically in that line item. So that's I always think of that as a bright spot going forward, though, because we're able to sustain our operations without any impairment to the services that we provide, and we were able to sustain it through this low period. And so when that comes back, that's one of the feeders that I would want us to consider for some of the capital projects that we have coming. Because we have some really large capital maintenance items that'll be hitting us in the next 5 to 10 years, and that's just one of those sources that we hope regenerates and comes back to help us. But I'm getting a lot deep. I'm almost going into a budget presentation. I'll keep it to the quarterly here. Really, overall, we're fine. I think the state aid, actually, they made up some ground in that area. They're only $900,000 behind. Last year they were double that, 1.8 million behind. Again, this is cash basis, so we don't clean out those monies that they owed us from the prior year, and but we're in target with that. I think we'll make collections on all of our state aid. Federal aid is about $100,000 down, but that's in the Title I area, and we'll pick that up, and that'll make budget by the end of the year. So I think we're fine on the revenue side, and then just to finish off with the expenditures. Again, this is the biggest item here are the salary and benefit items. It's 75% of our budget, and those are right on target. We've had 26 or 13 of the 26 paydays by June 30th. Sometimes one falls on the other side, or we have a 27th payday because of the way the biweekly pays fall. But we're right on target with that. Very comfortable with the salary benefits. A little bit of fluctuation on the purchase services, but last year was the anomaly. They were 58% spent with purchase services last year, but we had some large insurance claimable costs still going back to the tornado, the touchdown microburst that hit at the South Campus, and so there's some expenditures in there that hit last year at this time, but that was the anomaly. 45% is our normal purchase service, right in that range. 40 to 50% is normal for that line item. And really nothing to remark big going forward. We have about 500,000 in the O&M for capital outlay left to spend, and then about 500,000, maybe 400,000 in the other funds for capital outlay, and that's what the budget would show remaining. So I think we're in good shape there. The one item that is over budget, or that is, it looks like it's going to go beyond budget, is a tuition expense. It's 77% expended mid-year. It's a hard one to measure because the kids go in and out of that program a lot. We did have some more kids come in than were earlier projected. So right now we're thinking the range of, we look at it saying, okay, what's projected forward? If all the kids in the program stayed in it, what would happen to our budget? And we would be over budget. But we don't think all of them will stay in it. There's a lot of fluidity to that program of kids coming in and out. But they would go over budget, and so we are looking in other areas to try and hold it down. One area that we would go, and it is coming in nicely, is we changed our provider for special ed services for transportation services this year, which is saving us some dollars. So we'll look for those things to try and help us offset the overall budget. Mid-year point, I think we're doing fine though, and these ranges are less than 1% of variation overall, and I think we'll be fine. So, any questions?
I just, with regard to the tuition, does that includes residential placements and local placements, like our
Yes.
tuition just asked?
Yes. Yeah, all and voc ed as well, not just special ed. That's all
Okay.
programs that we have. Now, the voc ed is pretty well contained because we control the number that we send to TCD, and we knew what those are. So it is primarily on the special ed side where we're seeing a variation. But it's still hard. We'll know by March. We'll have a much better feel for it by the March quarterly for how this special ed tuition is rolling forward.
Thank you.
Thank
Gina,
you.
Literacy program?
Okay,
Thanks, Greg.
I'm happy to say that we have our department chair from North, English and Communications Department, Chris Bronke, who has with him today 4 of our literacy coaches, 2 from North High, Elaine Simos and Kathy Smith, and 2 from South High, Barb Maslini and Amy Stoops. And they're going to share with you information about our literacy coaching program.
Welcome.
Okay, I would like to start just by thanking you guys for having us. I can say still pretty new to this job in my middle of my second year now, and working with these individuals and in this program in particular is really one of the highlights of what I get to do on a regular basis. So I know I speak for all of us when I say we're excited to be able to share with you some of the great things that are happening in this program, and thank you for your support with this program. 3 main goals for the evening. I'm going to start the presentation off just by giving a little bit of an overview, kind of the history of these programs, They've been around for a little while now with changes in the board and changes in the leadership of them, and so I thought it might be good to just kind of summarize how they got started and what the goals are for the literacy coaching program as a whole. Then the coaches are going to take over, and each of them is going to share an example of some of the work that they've produced with their liaisons, and then a small little glimpse into where we think this program can go moving forward. So. And you see here the program history. North has had this literacy liaison program in effect since about 2005 and 6. It was founded there, I believe, with Maria Ward, but that predates me a little bit, so I'm just making that assumption. And then when Janice Schwartz, who's here, came into the district in I don't know if it was the exact year you started, but in 2008-9, she started a similar program at South. And both programs are really grounded in the work of Kathy Toll and Jim Knight. So all of the coaches have either gone directly through that sort of training and or indirectly been exposed to that training through their colleagues training them as well as reading the literature. And so that's kind of just a real brief overview, but I think the program goals kind of talk a little bit more to what this is all about, and these are what I'm going to explain here in a little bit more depth in a second. But there are 4 main things we are trying to do here, and one of them is just to provide this literacy coaching to the department. So what it is that the teachers in all different departments sign up to work with the literacy coaches to develop their own literacy in their classroom. The other thing we try to do, goal number 2, is just look at how we can get all the liaisons together to learn from one another. The third part is a newer piece to the plan, but this is bringing all the coaches together to learn from one another. And then the fourth one is contributing to the national conversation as well as state and local conversations on literacy. So looking a little bit more closely at these, goal number 1 is really at the heart of what this program is all about. And that is that we get volunteers from the different departments in the building to sign up to work with literacy coaches. And what that means is they meet once a week or once every other week, depending on how long they've been in the program and what sort of support they need. But basically, for a full period, they get to sit down and talk about, here's what I'm doing in my class right now. Here's what my students are struggling with. They really, they're not able to access this part of the textbook, or they're struggling with the vocab. Help me. And that's what the coaches do. They're all trained and have degrees in reading, and so they work with these liaisons to support literacy instruction. So instead of a coaching model where the coaches themselves are working directly with the students to support literacy, we look at it as we can reach every student by having the teachers better trained to teach literacy. And so that's the model that we're looking at. The other thing that's really nice here is that we use the term literacy liaison because the people who are being coached, those teachers, really do serve as liaisons, and because then they go back to their departments, and during PLC time, during department meeting time, and just informally in conversation, they're sharing all the great work they're doing. That's a lot of how we've gotten more people to sign up, because they hear about it and they're like, oh, wait, I can have someone work with me once a week on how I can be a better teacher? Like, yes, please sign me up. And so it really has grown. And so you can see here, these are the numbers since North has had this program, quite a bit. And if you look down at that bottom one, 70% of the staff has either in it or been through it. Now, it's a fluid number because obviously there's been turnover in staff since this program started, but it's just as a general, looking at the total number of teachers who have been through the program versus total number of staff currently in the building, about 70%. Same thing with South being at about 66%. And you can see that it ranges all sorts of departments, guidance, fine arts, everything. And that's something we really pride ourselves on. I think the coaches definitely do. That's their sort of, their pride and joy is working with these, quote, non-literacy departments to make everyone see that everyone is a literacy department. The next goal then is this idea of getting all of the liaisons together to learn from one another. So the liaisons are learning from the coaches, but then there's this quarterly get together where all of the liaisons get to learn from one another. And there's 2 different tracks within that. There's a first year plan where if you're new to the program, you meet with this, all the liaisons together that are also in their first year. And most of that study is grounded around this text, "Do I Really Have to Teach Reading" by Chris Tovani, which is this combination of sort of persuading teachers to see that teaching reading is everyone's responsibility, combined with strategies on how to do that. So she's not just going to make this claim that you should be teaching reading, then leave you out to dry. She gives you some strategies. So we get together and the liaisons have this chance to talk about how these are playing out. Then after you finished year 1 and you're in the program, it kind of shifts a little bit. And you see there it's more about professional inquiry and kind of exploring those complexities of my own discipline that I need help with and talking with other teachers about that. And regardless of if it's the first year or the advanced groups, one of the keys of this is liaison sharing. So at some point during the meeting, and it depends on which meeting it is, the liaisons have a chance just to share what they're working on with their coach. So they might sit down and like, well, I'm a math teacher. My kids are really struggling with, being able to write about, word problems. And so here's the goal we set up. And everyone that's listening is, the fine arts person and the science person, the English person. So they're hearing all of these different ways that literacy is being instructed throughout the building. And oftentimes, vigorously taking notes like, oh, I didn't think about that. Even though it's in biology, that would totally work in my, statistics class and those sorts of things. So the liaison sharing is definitely, I know for the coaches, they just get to sit back and just listen to all the excitement about teaching literacy. So it's a really fun part. Goal 3 here is sort of newer. I took over as chair last year and worked with Janice to bring the coaches together. In the past, they had been working sort of as a North coaching program and as a South coaching program, and both extremely successful, but Janice and I, who had a previous collaborative relationship, I was a teacher at South prior to becoming the chair at North, said, this is a moment to really move forward with these programs. And so we talked to the district administration about funding for this, and we get them together once a quarter now, and you can see there it's a chance for them to grow. So it's kind of this hierarchy, right? The liaisons get to work with the coaches, the liaisons get to work with each other, and now the coaches get to work with each other as well. We noticed there was a void. They weren't getting the PD that they wanted. I don't want to say needed because they're brilliant and didn't need it, but they wanted it. They wanted to have more say in how these coaching sessions are going, right? They kind of are in a little bit of an island when there's only 3 in one building and 4 or 5 in the other building, right? Who do I go to when I'm struggling to help one of my liaisons? Well, now they have that. We talked about things like data collection. How are we going to make sure we know this is working? We talked about how we're going to report that data. We created common goals. I mean, it was really productive stuff. And then the last goal here, and this, I phrased it as a goal, but what really came out of our last quarterly workshop together was this is almost more of an obligation. We feel unbelievably lucky to be in a district that really supports this, from the building level admin to district level admin and to the Board of Education. We are really sort of leading the way in literacy instruction, and so we see this as an obligation to give back to others. So these are some of the ways we've been doing this. Presentations, IRC, which is the Illinois Reading Council, IRA, which is the International Reading Association, National Council of Teachers of English, Conference on English Leadership. All of those have been presented at multiple times by some different variation of the coaching staffs from the 2 buildings. In addition, recently District 58 has started doing what they call a play date. It's kind of an unconference where teachers on their own time get together to talk about teaching, and both staffs had representatives at that which was 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, something like that. Again, just sharing what we're doing with literacy. Both schools have had visitors from everywhere from North Mundelein area to South Bloomington area because the word is out that what District 99 is doing is good, and they want to come learn from us, and we welcome them with open arms. We're happy to have them. Sometimes they spend a couple periods, sometimes they spend a couple days, sometimes they return because they want to hear more. To that end, actually in 2 days, North will be hosting the Call Literacy Summit. That is the Chicago area literacy leaders. We will have over 50 area literacy coaches or literacy instructors coming to our building to talk about literacy. We're going to give them a little bit of overview of our program and then basically let the liaisons do the talking. There's going to be some roundtables where the people who are doing this work are sharing what they're doing and people can learn from that. Publications, a lot of different things. The first 2 happened for South in the last couple of years. Jeff Wilhelm, who's one of the big gurus in literacy instruction, published some of the work that's come out of their liaison sessions. ASCD featured them in a DVD last year. And then Learning Forward and the NCT English Journal have published stuff that the North coaches have done. And then this last one here, most recently, you can see there's a little badge down in the lower left-hand corner of this slide. The National Center for Literacy Education, which is an offshoot of NCTE, has recognized District 99 as a National Center for Literacy Education. I'm going to ask Greg for a second if he could bring up a link. We've actually become one of their featured schools, and we're on their homepage as such. And so I just wanted you to kind of see what a great thing has happened for us because of the literacy instruction that we're doing. So this is the NCLE, and I say it's an offshoot of NCTE, but it's really a conglomerate of about 31 different organizations coming together with a Gates Foundation grant to help support literacy. And so this is their main homepage. And then Greg, if you just scroll down to the bottom for us, you'll see in the bottom left-hand corner there, featured centers for literacy education. They have 2 of them, and there it is. District 99 is one of them. So that was a recent development at the start of this school year, with then this featured piece coming up in the last couple of weeks, and something we're beyond proud of. So I just wanted to kind of highlight that for you guys. Yeah.
Could you send to Julie a copy, electronic copy of the publications and this link?
Absolutely.
And she can share it with us and we can peruse it.
Of course. Absolutely. We'd love to. Yeah. You can go back to the PowerPoint. Thanks, Craig. So as you can see, I just kind of gave you a really short little rundown, but they do a lot. And I say they because they really do it all. And Janice has gotten to sit back and see it all happen and help lead it. And now I get to do the same. And it really is the sort of, like I said, highlight of what I get to do. And I'm going to let them show you why it's such a highlight. So I'm going to start with turning it over to Kathy Smith and have her talking about some of the work she's doing in social studies.
Thanks. I've been working with Amy Bugner. She's a North social studies teacher. She's one of the liaisons that I work with the past 2 years. So I just wanted to share, last year when we started, her first goal and kind of how we went about it and the data we collected, and then what she's working on this year. And I echo Chris too. I feel very fortunate to be in this district with all of the support we get for the literacy program because many schools don't have what we have, and I think that I just feel blessed. So I definitely am pleased to be here. Amy Bugner, when we first started meeting, and we meet once a week, the first year, she really wanted to work on differentiation for her chapter reading. She teaches global connections for freshmen, and she had 2 sections. And what she wanted to do was make sure that she was tailoring the reading strategies to meet the students' needs, because they're at very different levels. Obviously, we know when we're dealing with, the mainstream, you have struggling readers and with advanced readers. So she really wanted to work on the differentiation piece, and she wanted to do explicit reading process instruction to help her kids get through the textbook reading assignments, and she wanted to implement that explicit instruction into the reading guides. So she wanted to kind of change, it wasn't the traditional study guide where it's just lists of questions and the kids go through and they answer the questions, because in that kind of model, kids tend to not read thoroughly and they tend to just look and hunt and peck, and they're not really comprehending and they're not getting the whole picture. So she was kind of struggling with that. So what we did was we used the reading process strategies before, during, and after and implemented them, and we would add more on as we tracked the kids' quiz scores. So she gave the quiz. We tracked it third quarter after we kind of planned things. The first study guide, reading guide, had the before reading strategy built in where the kids were activating their background knowledge. It led them through predicting and summarization. So she passed that reading guide out to them, and the students filled out the reading guide and took the quiz. And then what we did was we looked at the results, and we took the kids who failed the quiz and we differentiated and added more strategies. So she kind of grouped them and worked with those kids, and they implemented then a second round of during reading strategies where they were asking purpose questions throughout the chapter and chunking text. And you have to explicitly teach the kids the skill. So Amy, teaching the kids the skill and then having them go back, do the reading guide again, and we tracked it again, and we looked at how the kids were doing. And then there was still some failures, unfortunately, not a lot though. Amy's a great teacher. And we've implemented then the final for the kids. There was 3 that were still struggling with the quizzes, and we had them do explicit vocabulary study with the 3-column notes. So she had differentiated study guides for the kids that needed it, and it worked out really great. And we tracked the data, and this is kind of what we came up with. So quiz 1, she had 7 failures. After we implemented the strategies, then we got it down to finally the quiz 4 was 1 student was still struggling. So the strategies implementation obviously was helping. That was last year. Amy's a second-year liaison, and what we try to do with our second-year liaisons, and now with the Common Core, we're trying to implement more rigorous texts and discuss with the kids disciplinary literacy strategies. So that's what in history historians do when they're doing history. So it's going beyond the content strategies. The Common Core is calling for more critical thinking, analyzing, and they want the rigorous text. So for history, the best way to do this is to implement the primary source documents. So Amy's been working really hard this year on finding primary source documents and teaching the kids how to approach those documents, because it's very different. They're from a different time. So the questions then the students are being taught to ask while they're approaching these documents are listed. You want them to, what kind of document is it? Is it a letter? Is it what was the purpose of the document? You need to teach them to look at symbols, letterheads, stamps, consider the context, who wrote it, when, the time period, what was happening. So teaching them to go through this process and then finally pulling out evidence from the document to support a plausible history happening. So this is what she's working on this year. She's implemented one whole class discussion that went really well, and we're tracking the data. So hopefully we can come back and I can share that with you. I'm going to turn it over to Amy Stoops.
Thanks. Hi, I'm Amy. I'm from South. I'm one of the coaches at South. And this year I'm working with a music teacher, Greg Hansel. I met him this summer at a Chris conference, at our Chris workshop that we're running here in the districts. And he's like, oh, I want to work on some literacy and music. I was like, oh, God. When I was 10, my music teacher told me, music isn't for anyone, not for everyone. So after 4 years of trying piano, I put it away forever. So anyways, he said, oh, I really want to do this literacy. I'm like, okay, we'll try it out. I didn't know what I was doing, but he was pretty young, so I'm like, you know, I'll work with him, and we'll see how it goes. So he works with the freshmen, the concert band. Before literacy, we sat down together, and I kind of want to see what his goals were and some of the issues he was having. He was here last year, so it's his second year in the district, and he said last year some of the things he noticed with the freshmen, they have to learn 4 music intervals, all freshmen, regardless of what they teach, band, choir, and orchestra. So he noticed that in the years past, he was teaching the students, he's like, why aren't they getting this? I give them plenty of examples. For example, he said, like, for a perfect fifth, which is a musical note. I don't know if you guys know, I don't know what that means either, but he said that it's like in Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. Everyone knows that song, right? So, but the kids were, okay, they get it. They seemed okay. And then when they were going to take the test, they weren't doing so well. The average score he had last year was 4.5 out of 10. And they need a 7 to pass the final exam. So what I noticed working right away when he was trying to teach this to me, and it kind of benefited me to be a music dummy. So I was like, okay, I can hear it, but I can't really see it. So it turned out he gave me the music piece, we looked at it, it was a vocabulary issue and also visual. So they were hearing the music, but they couldn't see it. So it turned out just like in English and social studies and science, they needed to text mark and learn about vocab. So after only 1/4 of having the students text mark and also look at other pieces, and not only what they were playing, but like if they played the clarinet, they looked at what the flute was playing. So they looked at several pieces of music, and because of that, he said there was a lot more genuine questions about music. And the kids had more interest in learning it, and then they started to get it, which led to more questions, and then they were able to improve. This year at finals, 7.65 out of 10. Was the average score. So he was really happy. Here's what he says. Working with literacy coaches, making me think differently about ways to help students that I would not think of on my own. Because my coach is not a music person, it helps to think about learning how a student would and how I can teach music in a different ways. I think differently than I normally would when I'm stuck in music mode. So he's just a little bit more thinking like a student. So that's all.
Hi, I'm Elaine Simos, and I have the chance to work with a number of different math teachers at North. And one of the main goals we've been working with in the work with the different liaisons has been connected to our new Math 1 curriculum, connected to our Common Core. And specifically, a first liaison, who's a first-year liaison, working with Scott Gollin and Joanne Purcell. We're working with vocabulary skills, and then also problem solving in the Math 1 class. The new math habits of mine with the Common Core have very much changed the conversation about how you approach math. You know, when I was in school, it was 2x plus 3y, and there's an answer there somewhere. But it's completely shifted what they are doing. And they have to really figure out what are 4 different ways you could solve that seemingly simple equation. And if you solve it in any one of those 4 ways, how does it change? What's happening? And all those different variations led to an awful lot of questions. So one of the first things that we developed this year was this basic template for problem solving. And in fact, this liaison has shared this template that we came up with the math department. And so we've tried it out in a couple different Math 1 classes. So something that our students are really finding successful and helping them to understand, how do you find multiple answers and multiple ways to answer a question? And those are 2 of the big issues that the Common Core really brings up. They really focus on asking our students to go beyond that simple equation and think like a mathematician. Now, in the work with a second liaison, I'm very specific, focusing on the habits of mind in math. And again, coming back to that process of thinking and systematizing the reading process in math, and also the writing process, and how we break down those chapter tasks into very specific skills. The last piece of our work has been focusing on developing metacognitive assessments so we can figure out, do the students understand when they get it? And what do they do when they do understand that they don't get it? Do they have those skills? So one of our first tasks was to figure out exactly how you could make the math, take the math, make it into a visual organizer. This is a graphic organizer that we used for understanding trigonometric equations. And again, I'm not necessarily a math person, but what we figured out was that so long as we found a way for the students to see the connections and understand the process by which they would ask those questions, they could be successful with all different kinds of math tasks. We also had the students write paragraphs about rational expressions, and these were not just paragraphs explaining them. These were paragraphs comparing the differences between different types of rational expressions and going through all different orders of operations and really getting into that in-depth mathematical processing and thinking process that we weren't getting at before when we were just going for the right answer. What this turned into then for our habits of mind, specifically this liaison focused on perseverance and making sense of problems. So at the beginning of the year with Chapter 3, when we started this work, about 27.5% of students were able to accurately gauge their performance. So that meant that a really high number of students thought they were just knocking it out of the park, and they weren't. By the end of the process, though, we were able to get 63% of those students understanding exactly where and when they were going right, wrong, and if they were going in a wrong direction, how could they get themselves back? So we're able to really change this around. And this was in combination with continually increasing the complexity of those mathematics tasks. You know, they got way beyond that 4x plus 3y that I started from. And at the end, they were still showing nearly a 28% improvement in being able to understand their work. So they had a great first year of work, and we're looking forward to continuing this work with the Math 1 curriculum and the Common Core. Thanks.
Hi, I guess I'm bringing up the rear here, so I'm the main event maybe, I don't know. The top comedian, I don't know, so we'll see. I'm Barb Mazzolini, I work at South, and I'm working with actually a PE teacher, Colleen Regan, and her and I started working together last year, and this is my second year working with her.
So what PE had done, which I thought was amazing for a PE department, you don't hear this at other school districts, they had students actually reading articles and answering questions during Q1 when they had a classroom available to them. So each week the students would read an article that tied back into the curriculum, and then they had a worksheet and they answered some questions. And the frustration for the PE department was that the retention rate was really low because the students were just like Kathy said, kind of hunting and pecking through the text for the answers, but they weren't really reading the text, they weren't really comprehending the text. And the whole intent of them reading the articles was to take it beyond the PE class and tie it back into health, cardiovascular fitness, and kind of take it to that next level of depth. So they weren't achieving their goal, but they had a really good goal they were trying to achieve, which was having the kids actually read text and interact with text in PE. So this is where we started with the pre-literacy coaching, and these were her initial goals. Like, how can we get the kids to read these articles, actually read them, actually comprehend them, and actually apply them to the PE curriculum and to PE. So that was her goal. So what we ended up doing was we ended up setting a clear purpose for students. So they had a purpose for actually reading the text. How we did that was we taught students directly, the teachers directly taught the students, how to turn headings into questions. So they would turn their headings into questions in these articles. Then they were directly taught how to highlight selectively in order to answer those questions. So they would make a question, that's their purpose for reading, and then they learned how to go through the text and find the answer. So they're not henpecking through for an answer, they're actually creating a question and reading with a purpose. Then they were taught how to summarize the article effectively, and then they used that information, their highlighting and their summaries, to actually answer questions that we reworked. So it wasn't just, what's the percentage of students that do cardiovascular fitness? It was a specific question as how does cardiovascular fitness help you as a student be more healthy in your adult life? So we took those questions to a new level too. So we also reworked those worksheets. And then this year, halfway through last year, what we decided to do was they did that first quarter. Well, then they're like, well, now they're not doing anything second, third, and fourth quarter. Well, they didn't have access to a classroom to do these weekly articles. So what we did was I work with Colleen, but I also actually work with all but one of the freshman teachers, and I was on their PLC last year and on their PLC this year. So I'm working with a variety of the PE teachers and actually have a sophomore PE teacher working with me this year too. So what we decided to do is find 2 articles. We worked with our librarians to find articles that tied into the content that were good readability levels for the freshmen, and we found articles, and the teachers were able to select their articles. So Colleen had shared this information out with her teammates and at the PLCs, and then the students would read an article, and then they did these same skill sets with the article, but we added in a longer summary and making some connections within that article. So then the students continued their literacy in PE second, third, and fourth quarter. So this continued, and now this year I'm working with a sophomore teacher, so we're starting to continue that work now into the sophomore level. So it's just that, again, that liaison effect, that trickle effect. You start with one teacher, then another teacher decides to sign up and come on board, then you're on the PLC, and then they're sharing out. So it just is that really nice trickle effect. So at our school, all freshman students are exposed to this. So all freshman students are reading those articles first quarter and reading 2 articles second, third, and fourth quarter. So this is some of the data that we collected. The question was, they took a survey, online survey, and it says, I apply the strategy of selective highlighting when reading text outside of PE, and they rated it 1, 2, 3, or 4. 57% of students surveyed reported back that they do this very often to often, and only 10% reported doing this rarely. And then my ability to selectively highlight after direct instruction, 82% reported strong to very strong, and less than 1% reported weak. Yes?
About how many students did you survey?
They actually surveyed, I'm trying to think, I think it was almost every single student. So whatever students were present that day, they did it, they got laptops and brought them into the classroom. It was 700 and something, I think 752 or something around there. But yeah, they were very diligent in this data collection. They made sure that every student was surveyed that was present that day. So they did a really good job with it. Like I said, every freshman PE teacher bought into it, and even if they weren't being directly coached by me or on our PLC, they also were participating in all of these. So, and being coached by their teammates. So yeah. So it was a good data collection from them. And then this year we want to add in, at the end of the year, we want to survey them again, now that they're reading these articles, and survey them again and just kind of see where they're at the end of the year and how they're applying this and if it's trickling over to other subjects also, and they're applying this in their other classes. So. This is what Colleen had said. She said, I previously tried to incorporate reading by including articles for quarter one. Now, I directly teach these strategies throughout the entire year. As my post-assessments show, my students have gained greater comprehension and independence because of the literacy strategies that were taught. So, and that's it. Thank you again for your time.
As you can see, the work that's going on is just fantastic, and the approach that these coaches take to working one-on-one with these liaisons is just, they could talk for days about it, and I could talk for even longer about how good they're doing. So we'll just try and sum it up this way. Moving forward, we've got some things we want to try and accomplish. I think this comes out of this effort, which started last year and is continuing this year, to bring the coaches together. It's amazing how two programs, when brought together, can really focus to create goals that can move us light years ahead of where we ever thought we could be. One of the places here that came out of, again, just getting coaches together from both buildings to talk about common trends they're seeing in literacy instruction is, the Math 1 program needs some support. And that's what all these coaches are working on. They're working with the math teachers to help that, and you saw a little bit with Elaine's work. And so the conversation about not only helping the teachers in that program, but also their coaches, since there's a lot of experience with coaching here that could go to helping them out. Continue the collaboration. I think that's a key. It's been a great progress and progression of seeing us kind of come together and develop. I forgot to mention that one of the things that's happening this year for the first time, Elaine is part of it, and then Jen, who's not here right now, is a joint professional development offering to all teachers. So one of the coaches from North and one of the coaches from South got together and put together a workshop on close reading across the disciplines. They're going to offer that to any staff member that wants to come. So it's a really exciting moment for us and something that we hope staff take advantage of, and then we continue to do, because it's really kind of interesting how I may not have been able to see it from the presentation itself, but each of these coaches have such a broad range of skills, but also a sort of finite sort of research passion within literacy. And so when we add it all together, there's really nothing that they can't do. And so we look forward to seeing that continue. And then just continue to that conversation. Again, I want to stress, we really do, as a group, feel it's sort of our obligation. We're so blessed to be in a position where we are, where the support is there to do this sort of work. And we know that we're sort of leading the way. And as a result of that, we want to give back as much as we can. That's presentations, continue to invite those people in to take a look at our program. Not because we want to try and brag, although it's fun to do that too, but because we want to help other schools be able to give the same sort of literacy instruction to their students that we're able to do. So with that, I'll open the floor for any questions, and if there aren't any, that's okay too.
I do you have a sense of, I'm sure you do, how many students you've already impacted, like, throughout? Is that hard to do at this point?
Yeah, it's hard to quantify. When you look at, the simple answer would be roughly 70% of the student body, because that's how many staff have been part of it. So if you just kind of look at it, on a bigger sense like that, and you think about it, there's 3 coaches at North, and none of them, this is their full-time thing. They're all, they're teaching English classes as well, and 5 at South. There's no way that 8 individuals or 9 individuals, whatever we have, could meet individually with 70% of the student body to get this sort of result. But because of this program, they do. So
that's impressive. It sounded as though you really multiplied the effect of this program, and it's wonderful.
Thank you.
I was curious, what to remain on the cutting edge and Common Core aside, where would you love to go if money were no object, time, and all the other things that come into a teacher's day? Where would you love to go? Where would you like to drive this vehicle?
Hawaii is what I'm hearing from my coaches.
Coaching in Hawaii.
I think we could. No, I think I'll speak on my behalf, and then maybe if they have other things as well. There are a few things I'd like to see. I would like, if we're just talking the ideal world, I would love to see more time for them to continue to get their own professional development. When you talk about staying on the cutting edge, that's where it happens. And bless their hearts, they give up a lot of their time outside of the school day or outside of their normal working conditions to stay on the cutting edge. And so for me, it would be more time and support, not that there isn't support now, but to allow them to continue advanced degrees, to support the time that it takes to to go get a PhD in literacy, and just to do all the reading and researching that they do. You know, when someone comes to them and says, you know, I need help with music, and you've got a coach who got kicked out of her music lessons, there's some research that has to go there. And every one of these coaches spends hours doing research tailored to their individual liaison so that they are at the cutting edge. So for me, it would be just the continued support to give them the PD they need to be as great as they can. I don't know if you guys have anything that...
I guess we've done a lot of presenting, which I think has been a great experience, but I would like continued support for our liaisons who have done presentations, but they're very knowledgeable and independent, and when you are looking at the broader audience, the math teacher, say from Hinsdale Central, would much rather hear the math teacher sharing, hey, this is what I did in my math class to help with the writing or the reading. So I guess more support for the liaisons, I guess, to get out there and present, and continued support. I know I have 3 liaisons that would like to do a proposal for IRC. They've done some great things with their special needs students. And then some publishing, I guess, is my personal goal. I really would like to get some more articles out. Because again, that's a good learning experience, obviously, for me. I'm in a doctorate program, so I'm gonna have to be writing a dissertation someday. Probably not soon. But I guess publishing for me personally, and then the liaisons, just getting them. The stages on the stages now, because they're really great, and they're just so wonderful. Teachers are so wonderful.
I mean, to kind of piggyback off that, it's very rare because when we present, lots of publishers come up to us and ask us to write books and things like that. Which usually people write a book and then they're trying to find a publisher. We have the opposite problem. People like want us to publish for them, and you know that's time consuming, and I don't know. It's just a great problem to have.
I would say one of their flaws as a coaching staff is their humility. I had to fight them to be the ones to present tonight and not have the liaisons here doing the talking, because I felt that they deserve that sort of credit. In an ideal world, they would have. They would all be back there sitting quietly with the proud mom look on their face, because that's how they approach this. And so it goes to what Kathy's saying about that it's that special bond that gets created where the liaison gets to be the star, and sometimes I think at their own fault, not taking enough credit for the work they do.
Thank you for all the work that you've done, being a national leader, and also for your candor, because I know when you become this good, a lot of people want your time, in other districts, and sometimes that allows you maybe to be stagnant and not remain on cutting edge, because all your time is spent, teaching other people, and that's very difficult. So. I'm glad that you mentioned that. Thank you.
Thank you.
I would just say encourage you to present. The board conference in the fall would be a great place. I will tell you, we have had other presenters who are the liaisons or directly benefit from the liaisons who have given you guys compliments prior to today.
That's great.
I can't name them, but there have been more than 2. I can't think of a greater gift that we could give our students or our teachers, and the ability to really learn. I mean, you forget, no offense teachers, but you forget facts, you forget, oh God, what was it that Columbus sailed the ocean blue, but reading and thinking is a skill. Okay, 1492, I really do know what
She'll sign up for one.
Well, actually, I would like to come to the closer reading class. But I think that's just a really great gift that you individually, and if I may say, we as a district and you as administrators give to both teachers and students, and just thank you very much. Get out there and present. I don't hear any more excuses.
One more question. Are you finding, obviously, I think it's probably been a more difficult transition because you have had to teach older teachers, meaning 5-10 years and up, how to work, with these types of programs. Are you finding student teachers or new teachers coming into the profession, how well trained are they already coming out of the box?
I
think, well, I can only speak for myself. I feel like there's more awareness of literacy. I started off as an English teacher, and I became a reading specialist because I had no clue how to teach kids who didn't know how to read, how they couldn't access the text. We didn't really have a lot of strategies. And I got my reading degree 10 years ago, and even that was like, they didn't even talk about literacy coaching back then. So things are very different now in education than they were even 10 years ago when I got my reading degree. So I feel like teachers coming out of the programs are a little bit more aware of literacy than maybe more veteran teachers.
Yeah, I don't know if the skill has changed, but the disposition has. The understanding that literacy is everyone's responsibility. I don't know if we're fighting that battle, and when I say we and they, nearly as much now as maybe they were, when North started this program in 05-06. I can only imagine what that looked like when you had to tell a math teacher to go teach literacy. I'm glad it's a battle I didn't have to fight.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Really impressive.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hey, before we have the final reception of visitors, I'd just like to add 2 things quickly after the agenda. The first is to let everybody know that there will be an open house at the Transition House from 5 to 7 this Wednesday.
I think it's
4 to 7, thank you. I left my sheet of today. 4 to 7 this Wednesday. It's on Denard, right behind Mr. Submarine, north side of Ogden. And do you know the exact address?
4232.
4232 Denard. Please do stop in and see it. It is quite a gift to the community. And I would like to just take a moment to recognize Mr. Cozio and Collegier. I have a friend named Cozio. Mr. Collegier and all of the people who worked with him, all of the teachers, the builders, the maintenance guys. It was over 50 people who really made it come to life. So just, we'd like to thank you. And Jim, I'll get your name right.
Okay.
I'm still working on it.
Just Jim. It's just Jim.
The other thing I just want to mention, because we did mention it last time at our last meeting, but our last meeting was not televised because of the weather. But we did want to give a little shout out about Pizza Wars. So, Jim?
Well, I just want to make sure that we mention some of the people who made the successful foundation Pizza Wars a success. And they're the pizzerias who donated all of the pizza that night. And it was I'm going to read it because it's much easier. Al's Pizzeria in Woodridge, Aurelio's in Downers Grove, which was our winner, and Giordano's in Downers Grove, John and Eddie's in Downers Grove, Papa's Pizza in Woodridge, Sarpino's, thank you. I'm not Italian, as you can tell, in Downers Grove, and Scuttlebutts in Downers Grove, and Tortucci's in Downers Grove. So those are our pizzerias. And then I'd also like a special thanks to some of our supporters, and they're 3M Corporation, Ron Sandek, our Illinois State Representative, Maxim Printing and Graphics, the mayors of Downers Grove and Woodridge, Martin Tully, and Gina Cunningham Pizek. Oh, sorry, didn't mean to mispronounce your name. And the Rock Academy, and then everyone who attended. It was just a magnificent event, and I am confident we'll be doing it again. So thank you to all of those folks, and be sure and patronize all of those pizza places because they did a fabulous job. Fabulous. So thank you.
Okay, does anybody have anything else they'd like to say before the final reception of visitors? So this is the opportunity for anyone in the audience to address the board on any topic pertaining to Community High School District 99. Oh gosh, I am so sorry. Ed,
Wow.
we welcomed him earlier personally. We wish to welcome Ed Schwartz.
Thank you.
Schwartz.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Yep.
Schwartz, I'm sorry. I'm Schwartz. Ed Schwartz. I didn't say it clearly.
And Collegier.
We have literacy coaches.
Schultz here too, if you could.
Welcome, you will be Mr. Bill.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Yes. Fabulous.